Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Honghuang. My mother's clouds, born into chaos. Traversing through the wilderness, unexpectedly becoming the mortal fetus of the cloud fairy in the Battle of Fengshen. I'm a bit panicked on Monday. On the day of birth, all immortals come to congratulate. Watching the mothers, aunts, and uncles gathered around her, who were destined to die in the future, I decided on Monday to do something. Long-eared Dingguang Immortal. This guy is a 2 or 5 kid, kill him first. Master Tongtian, I have discussed with Auntie Houtu. When the time comes, you will set up the Immortal Sword Formation, and the 12 ancestors witches will unite with Pangu's true body to launch a surprise attack on the old thief Zhunti. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Wilderness, 3 Immortals Island, Seeking Flowers, Seeking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Honghuang, Sanxian Island. Ancient trees towering in the sky, white cranes hovering. Outside a magnificent palace, surrounded by spiritual energy, stood a miraculous Qinghuan outside the hall, spewing out words. Madam, just now the master ordered that no one be allowed in. Including me. Across from Qinghuan, a fairy with a slightly baby-fat face darkened. Yes. Qinghuan's eyes showed a humanized concern and she whispered, I don't know why, my master hasn't gone out for months. How many months? The fairy frowned lightly. Although there is no time for cultivation, when one closes down, it is often calculated in years. But Sister Yunxiao's cultivation level has already been that of the great Luo Golden Immortal, and further progress cannot be achieved through seclusion. We need to see the chance. Therefore, even if my sister is locked up, she will only be locked up for a maximum of 1 month. Could it be that my sister's cultivation went wrong? Bixiao was slightly startled and raised her foot to walk towards the main hall. Wait a moment, madam. Qinghuan stretched out a wing and said with righteous words, the master has instructed that no one is allowed to enter. Bai Xiao Xiu frowned and was about to get angry. Before she could speak, a hint of cunning flashed in Qinghuan's eyes and he continued. However, madam, your cultivation is profound. If you use an invisibility technique and sneak in, I will definitely not be able to detect it. Bixiao was taken aback for a moment. Then she instantly realized, with a smile on her face, and said, Xiaowan, you did a good job. Since sister doesn't let anyone in, I'm no exception. After speaking, she turned around and prepared to pretend to leave, then went back in hiding. But at this moment, a slightly tired and helpless voice echoed out from the main hall, stop making trouble. Little sister, come in. Bixiao smiled and glanced at Qinghuan, walking briskly into the hall. Passing through the magnificent outer hall. Turning the screen, on the bed behind the light purple veil, a figure sat cross-legged with its back facing the visitor. Sister, I heard from Xiaowan that you haven't taken a step out of your room for several months. Did your cultivation go wrong? As soon as she walked in, Bixiao restrained her playful expression and asked with a worried expression on her face. No. Yunxiao let out a soft sigh and shook his head, however, would rather it was a mistake in my cultivation. Why does sister say that? Bixiao blinked her eyes, feeling a bit puzzled. Those who practice are most afraid of making mistakes in their practice. Seemingly ordinary mistakes may affect their lifelong achievements. The clouds remained silent in the sky. After a moment, she sighed again and slowly lifted the veil. Yunxiao, who was sitting cross-legged, stood up and measured her body. From this angle, her lower abdomen bulged slightly. Sister, you. Bixiao suddenly froze. I have a fetus in my abdomen. The gentle and stunning face of the clouds carried a bitter smile. Bixiao stared blankly at her stomach, and after a moment of silence, suddenly a happy expression appeared, saying, Isn't that why I'm going to be an ant? By the way, sister, who is the father of the child? Who the hell secretly captured my sister's heart? What nonsense! Yunxiao glared at her and said, you still don't know my temperament. This matter sounds very strange. About 3 months ago, I was originally in seclusion when suddenly I felt abnormal movements in my abdomen. Upon closer inspection, I found out that it was actually a fetus. This makes me extremely puzzled. In all these years, no man has ever been able to enter my eyes. Where did the fetus come from? Upon hearing this, Bixiao also put away her smile and furrowed her eyebrows. After thinking about it, she said, I heard that Yuan Feng, the leader of the Phoenix clan back then, once sensed the harmony between heaven and earth, giving birth to the golden-winged Dapeng and the peacock. Isn't it just like my sister? Impossible. Without hesitation, Yunxiao shook his head and said, if there is a fusion of heaven and earth, how can I not sense it? That's also true. Bixiao held her chin in distress and said, so what's going on? Sister, have you gone to ask the teacher for respect? No. Yunxiao lowered his eyes and looked at his bulging abdomen, whispering, after all, this fetus came from a strange place. I'm worried that the master will expel me from the sect because of this. So, what are you going to do? Bai Xiao observed her face and tentatively said, don't want this fetus. Refining it. Yunxiao gently shook her head. A hint of love flashed in her beautiful eyes and she said softly, at first, I was indeed a bit panicked. I tried to refine the fetus, but found that it couldn't be refined. These past few months, I have also opened up to it. Watching him toss and turn in his belly every day is quite interesting, even if he can refine, he can't bear to part with it. Upon hearing this, a joyful expression reappeared on Bixiao's pretty face, saying, then stay. Master has always taught without discrimination, so you shouldn't blame him. Even if you do, my second sister and I will plead for you. While speaking, she took 2 steps forward and sat next to the clouds, looking hopeful and saying, sister, can I touch it? You. Yunxiao chuckled and nodded, touch it, touch it. With permission, Bixiao carefully placed her palm on the protruding lower abdomen of Yunxiao. Suddenly, my belly bulged lightly. Ah, he's kicking me, Bixiao exclaimed excitedly, Yunxiao's gaze softened as he looked at his abdomen. He's been very active lately, but I don't know when he'll be able to give birth, he said, at least it will take a few years. Bixiao tilted her head and thought for a moment, then said seriously. I think there's no need to worry. When Yuan Feng gave birth to a peacock and a golden-winged roc in just 1 day, she almost exhausted her life. Sister can slowly nurture herself to avoid giving birth to a fetus and losing herself. Yunxiao nodded and said, I understand. Yuan Feng is not a simple character. The leader of the Phoenix clan, one of the 3 innate ethnic groups, is undoubtedly a quasi-saint and one of the rulers of the vast land back then. It has yet to reach that level, let alone the clouds. At this moment, next to Yunxiao and Bixiao, a transparent figure floated in the air, staring blankly at this scene. Am I reborn? No, it seems that the pregnant woman's belly is me, so it's not rebirth, but reincarnation. Chapter 2. I became a child in the clouds. Seeking freshness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Others are all soul-piercing, body-piercing. I'm better off, starting directly from the fetus. Monday is speechless. It seems that this is still a world of practice. Besides the mother, does the other woman seem to be named Bixiao? This name is a bit familiar, however, she didn't think much, after all, in fantasy or cultivation novels, such names are too common. They seem to say they need to be pregnant for at least a few years. I have a twitch at the corner of my mouth on Monday. What a joke. Let him stay in his stomach for a few years, isn't that suffocating? And he just tried and couldn't even leave the main hall within a certain range of the mother body. Unfortunately, they can't hear me speak, and they can't even see me. Monday sighed. There is not even a speaker, I can only be an observer, and thinking about it makes me feel uncomfortable. We need to come up with a solution. Monday Dao was suspended in the air, looking at the two sisters below, lost in thought. It seems like it's not moving anymore. Bai Xiao stared intently at Yunxiao's belly and muttered. He fell asleep. Yunxiao whispered softly. As a mother and also a great Luo Jingxian, she can clearly understand the state of the fetus in her abdomen. Oh. Bi Xiao quickly closed her mouth and remained quiet for a few seconds. Her eyes rolled and she whispered, Sister, I'll leave first. You have a good rest. Go ahead. Yunxiao nodded slightly and cautioned, don't spread this out for now. I know. As Bi Xiao spoke, her figure suddenly transformed into a divine aura and disappeared in an instant. In the main hall. Sitting cross-legged in the clouds, with eyes slightly closed, one hand resting on the abdomen, the faint halo covering the palm, fully focused on nurturing the fetus. What? In another immortal temple. Yunxiao Fairy suddenly stood up, her face full of surprise. Sister is pregnant. Shoo. Bi Xiao quickly raised a finger and made a silent gesture, no one else knows about this except you and me. Don't speak up. Of course I know. Yunxiao suppressed her fluctuating emotions and said with a suspicious expression, is it really fake? Which man in the world can catch my sister's eye? What I saw with my own eyes can still be fake. Bai Xiao swore confidently, however, it seems that my sister's fetus appeared inexplicably. I secretly glanced at her with a spell and confirmed that she is still a virgin. Appearing inexplicably. A hint of surprise flashed in Yunxiao's beautiful eyes, perhaps just like Yuan Feng. You think the same as I do, but my sister said it's definitely not because she didn't sense the blending of yin and yang, said Bi Xiao with a smile. That's strange. Unlike Bi Xiao's liveliness, Yunxiao has a more gentle temperament. After pondering for a moment, she slowly said, did Master know about this matter? I don't know. Bi Xiao frowned and shook her head, saying. Sister dare not tell Master, afraid of being expelled from the sect because of this. But this matter must not be hidden from Master. We must plead for Sister's mercy when the time comes. That's nature. Yunxiao nodded thoughtfully. With the Master's temperament, it may be better to inform proactively. She looked at Bi Xiao with a smile and said, moreover, among the personally transmitted disciples, you are the youngest. Your Master has always favored you, so it's best for you to handle this matter. Sister, will she be unhappy? Bi Xiao hesitated. I won't do it. Yunxiao gently shook her head and said, Sister has always been indecisive and hesitant in her actions. All right, let me go with you to pay respects to Master and explain this matter. Master is a sage of the heavenly way, and perhaps we can know the reason why my sister is pregnant. After a moment of contemplation, Bi Xiao quickly made up her mind and said with great emphasis, okay. Do as you say. The second daughter immediately set off for the Bio Palace. However, before leaving Sanxian Island, he was blocked by a figure. Where are you going? The Cloud Fairy's face remained expressionless, with one hand gently caressing her lower abdomen and her gaze calmly fixed on them. We. Bi Xiao was a bit flustered, her eyes spinning non-stop. Yunxiao was much more calm. She looked straight at the clouds and said with a bitter smile. Sister, do you really think you can hide from your master? In the wilderness, unless there are other saints intervening, what can the world hide from him? The Cloud Fairy remained silent. Master teaches without discrimination, and has never interfered with disciples in the sect. What's there to worry about, sister? Maybe Master can still know the origin of your fetus. Aren't you curious? Yunxiao advised again. In fact, from beginning to end, Yunxiao Fairy had no intention of hiding from Yunxiao to visit the leader of the Tongtian sect. She knew very well that her sister's cultivation was extremely profound, and everything on the three Immortals Island could not be concealed from her sight and hearing. A long silence. The Cloud Fairy let out a faint sigh and said, "All right. Since that's the case, I'll go with you to the Bio Palace and pay respects to Master." Hunger, education without discrimination, three sisters. On the side, Monday.On floated over the sky above the Cloud Fairy, listening to their conversation and twitching at the corners of his mouth. Have I become the child of the Cloud Fairy? Chapter 3. The first meeting of the heavenly and chaotic body. Seeking freshness. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In the wilderness, whenever there is education without discrimination, it must be the leader of the Tongtian sect. But he called the Tongtian cult leader as the master, and he was also a three sisters. Except for the Sanshao goddess, Monday's thought of no one else. This is not a good thing. Monday.On is very clear about the ending of the three Shao Fairy. The Cloud Fairy was enveloped by the heavenly Old Lord with the Qianquan diagram and died from being crushed on the Qilan cliff. Yunxiao Fairy was struck by the Yuanshi heavenly Lord with Jade Rui and died. The Fairy Bixiao is even more miserable. It was loaded into the treasure box by Yuanshi Tianzuan, along with people and mounts, and turned into blood and water. Pity them, the three sisters are all great golden immortals, and their cultivation is high. However, they can't fight with saints in any way. They die miserably. In fact, among the disciples who have been intercepted, there are not many who are still alive and sound. Since I have become the child of the Cloud Fairy, I absolutely cannot sit idly by, but is there any way to solve it? Pondered Monday. Unconsciously. The Sanshao Fairy has already arrived at the gate of the Bio Palace. Before they could even speak up to meet, the Water and Fire Boy, who was guarding the door, smiled and said, "Three senior sisters, the master already knows that you have come. You don't need to report, just go in." Sanshao glanced at each other and nodded slightly. "Let's go." Yunxiao took a deep breath, calmed his mood, and walked towards the Bayou Palace. Yunxiao and Bixiao followed closely behind. Entered the palace. At a glance, I saw a young Taoist sitting quietly on a futon, with his back facing the incoming person. I pay my respects to my master. The three heavenly fairy dared not neglect and respectfully saluted, wishing Master immortal blessings and boundless holy longevity. This is the leader of the Tongtian sect, one of the 6 great saints. Monday.On floated in the air, gazing at the young Taoist. He drifted straight in front of the Taoist, reached out his hand and shook it in front of his eyes, only to find that he couldn't even see the leader of the heavenly sect. Flat. The leader of the Tongtian sect did not turn around and said calmly, "I have a sudden idea today. I calculated with my fingers, knowing that you will come to find me." "What is the matter?" "Master doesn't know why we came to see you." The Cloud Fairy was taken aback. On the side, Yunxiao and Bixiao also showed an incredulous expression. "You should know that the leader of the Tongtian sect is the Honghuang Wuda Luo Jingxian, and also their master. They are connected by cause and effect, and theoretically, only by pinching their fingers and calculating can they know the purpose of their arrival." "I don't know." There was also a hint of strangeness in the tone of the Tongtian sect leader. "I have calculated that this matter should be related to the clouds. Have you recently seen your 2 senior uncles, or the Empress and Yuhua, or the Western second sect leader?" "I haven't seen it before." The Cloud Fairy dared not conceal it and respectfully said, "I haven't gone out for several months." "That's very interesting." The leader of the Tongtian sect slowly turned around and his gaze swept over Yunxiao, revealing a strange color in his eyes. "Are you pregnant?" "When?" "Before March," said the Cloud Fairy truthfully. "March." Master Tongtian pondered for a moment. After a while, he slowly said, "As a teacher, I deduce the mystery of heaven, but when it comes to you, it becomes hazy. If there is no external force to cover it up, then it can only be your own cause. Master means, disciple's child. The Cloud Fairy's pupils slightly contracted. The leader of the Tongtian sect did not answer. He said leisurely, the Great Way is 50, and the heaven is 40.9. Escape one of them. Yunxiao, do you remember why my Jijiao is called Jijiao? I dare not forget. Without hesitation, the Cloud Fairy replied, truncation refers to understanding the heavenly way. Another meaning is to cut off a thread of vitality. The saying goes, the Great Way is 50, the heavenly way is 40.9, and one of them is to escape. The one that escapes is the thread of vitality that we need to intercept in our teaching. Not bad. Master Tongtian nodded slowly and said, that's why I named my teacher, Jijiao. But you only know one thing, not the other. The sage of the heavenly way, who has gone through countless tribulations but never perished, and has not been affected by cause and effect. He coexists with the Great Way and exists with the heavenly way. One mind knows anyone, anything, or anything in the past, present, or future. I have already seen the future and have the intention to change, but I am powerless to do so. The only chance is to cut off a glimmer of hope. However, as a teacher calculating all the mysteries, the outcome is always difficult to change, but now, after all, we have seen the variables. At the end, the tone of Master Tongtian's voice was already a hint of solemnity and coldness. The Cloud Fairy pondered and said, are you referring to the inner child of the disciple? Not bad. The head of the Tongtian sect's gaze fell on the abdomen of the Cloud Fairy, as if he had directly seen the fetus inside. It is not within the number of days, and the heavenly mechanism is chaotic and chaotic. I can't count as a teacher, so naturally they can't count either. The they in his mouth naturally refer to the other 5 saints. Sister's child is so powerful that even a saint can't be considered. The fairy Bixiao widened her round big eyes. At this point, Master Tongtian suddenly said, Yunxiao, I will give you 2 choices. Firstly, you must have been pregnant for 1,000 years before giving birth to this child. Otherwise, if you give birth early, your cultivation will drop to the level of the great Luo Golden Immortal, making it difficult to make any progress in your life. Secondly, take it out at this moment and use the sage's cattail to nurture him as a teacher. Of course, in name, he will still be your child. Of course. No matter which one you choose, as a teacher, I won't interfere. Once this statement is made, the Cloud Fairy suddenly froze. She slowly lowered her eyes and looked at her bulging abdomen, with a hint of struggle in her beautiful eyes. This is undoubtedly a difficult choice. If she chooses the first option, having 1,000 years of pregnancy is not a big deal, mainly because she will fall into the realm of the great Luo Golden Immortal. If it's the second type, is the fetus inside her abdomen really considered her child? However, it cannot be denied. If nurtured by the sage Putuan, she will definitely have a more promising future than the child she gave birth to after 1,000 years of pregnancy. That's a sage futon. There are only 6 in the entire world of chaos. Are you joking? I chose the second option back then. I woke up early on Monday morning. Allowing him to stay in his belly for 1,000 years may not be much for Yunxiao, but it is a great torment for him. As the saying goes, mother and son are connected. Monday.On vaguely realized that the Cloud Fairy was definitely more inclined to personally give birth to him. A long silence. The Cloud Fairy lowered her head to look at her belly and whispered, Master, as a great Luo Golden Immortal, although the fetus in her womb is only 3 months old, I have already become conscious. Why don't we let him choose for himself, okay? After listening to her words, the leader of the Tongtian sect pondered for a moment and nodded, it's okay. He thinks much more than the Cloud Fairy. If the fetus is really a fugitive, then if forcibly intervened, this glimmer of vitality may not be able to be intercepted. So, he let the Cloud Fairy, as his mother, make a choice. But letting the fetus choose for themselves may be more appropriate. Thank you very much, Master. The Cloud Fairy reached out a plain white jade hand and gently stroked her lower abdomen, whispering, "Child, I know you can understand what I'm saying. If you want to choose the first option, just kick me, and the second option, just kick me twice." Whoosh! On Monday, the soul instantly returned to its original position. He lifted his little foot and was about to kick 2 feet, but at that moment, a loud and cold voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Activate the 3-choice system. Option 1. Kick and the Cloud Fairy will be born after 1,000 years of pregnancy, and you will receive a reward of innate Tao body. Option 2. Kick 2 feet, born early, nurtured by the sage Putuan, can receive a reward. Chaos body. Option 3. Kick 3 times. You can receive an unknown supreme reward. Chapter 4. The Heavenly Sovereign gives names, seeking flowers, seeking collections. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The foot that was lifted up on Monday froze. System. The activation time is too coincidental. If it were any slower, he would just kick it out with both feet. How do you think it would be better to choose the third option? Meditate on Monday. Obviously, the reward given by the first choice is the worst. The innate Tao body. In theory, the first group of people created by Nu were based on the 9 heavens and the earth, and probably all of them were innate Tao bodies. Directly exclude. The second one is interesting. Chaos is probably extremely rare and may not even exist throughout the entire wilderness. What is chaos? When heaven and earth are not yet open. Monday speculated that gods and demons born out of chaos, such as Taoist Hongjun, are highly likely to be chaotic entities. As for the third option, it just means there is a supreme reward. Take a gamble. After a moment of contemplation, I made a decision on Monday. He felt that the system would not do such meaningless things, so the supreme reward must be far superior to the innate Tao body, and once again, it will not be much worse than the chaotic body. Think of it here. Monday raised his foot and kicked 3 times with extreme force. Bang, 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 the Cloud Fairy's belly bulged 3 times in a row. This scene stunned all the immortals present. What does he mean by kicking 3 times? Said Yunxiao Fairy with a hesitant expression on her face. Could it be an extra kick? Bixiao guessed. The Cloud Fairy is also a bit confused. She stayed for a few seconds before gently caressing her abdomen with her hand and saying, "Child, did you kick the wrong thing?" Wrong hair. On Monday, he pouted and then kicked 3 times at lightning speed. Indeed, it was 3 times. On the Futuan, the leader of the Tongtian sect frowned slightly. If it were an ordinary fetus, he could easily grasp its thoughts with just a pinch of his fingers, but this child is not capable, as the mystery is completely blurred. So, what should we do? The Cloud Fairy lifted her head in confusion and looked at her master. The fetus neither wants her to be born after 1,000 years of pregnancy, nor does it want the leader of the Tongtian sect to directly remove it with great power and nourish it with a sage's futon. What does he want to do? Both options do not align with his ideas. The head of the Tongtian sect narrowed his eyes, and thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind, speculating on the possibility. If he is really the one who has escaped, then his choice must be the optimal solution. Ideas emerged one by one and were rejected one by one. After a while, the leader of the Tongtian sect couldn't help but reach out and rub his forehead. It was the first time since the beginning of heaven and earth that he had been so distressed. No matter what you think, it's the most perfect way to nourish yourself with sage futon. At this moment, Monday Dao is also a bit speechless. He did choose to kick 3 times, but it is clear that the final result has not been determined yet. So the system did not provide any rewards. At this moment, the nearby fairy Bixiao suddenly said, "Master, do you mean that the fetus should choose a compromise solution?" Compromise. The cloud fairy's gaze flickered. Bixiao, can you tell me how to compromise? Although Master Tongtian had a rough idea in his mind, he still casually asked. You said either let your sister conceive for 1,000 years, or take out the fetus now and nurture it with the sage's cattail. Bai Xiao said seriously, so, can we put the sage's futon directly into my sister's body to warm up the fetus? Little sister's words make sense. Next to her, Fairy Yunxiao nodded slightly and said, however, you can ask the child if they are willing to do so. Almost at the same time, the sound of the system echoed again in Monday.On's mind. You have selected the third option and received the ultimate reward, which has been distributed to the system backpack. Please check your inbox. On Monday, I was refreshed. He immediately understood that this was clearly the optimal solution recognized by the system. Then I'll ask him. The cloud fairy nodded and lowered her eyes, whispering, child, if you're willing, just kick me. If you're not willing. Bang, my belly bulged. The beautiful eyes of the cloud fairy suddenly lit up, and her pretty face showed a joyful expression. She exclaimed excitedly, Master, he agrees. Anyway, it's also your chance. Master Tongtian nodded with a smile on his face. After speaking, he reached out and pointed, and a stream of light floated beside the clouds. It's like a shrunken futon that's countless times smaller. This is the saint's putuan. As a teacher, I have lifted the imprint. Yunxiao, you can directly drop a drop of essence and blood on it, and then you can freely retract and release it. The leader of the Tongtian sect warned. It is originally transformed by the Hongmeng purple qi. Hongmeng purple qi not only warms the fetus, but also warms your body, but you must not attempt to refine it. With your own body, it is difficult to bear the cause and effect of this heavenly path. Upon hearing this, the cloud fairy's face was solemn, and she nodded solemnly, saying, Thank you very much for giving me the treasure, Master. I will remember it. The leader of the Tongtian sect nodded slightly and smiled, Does a fetus have a surname? Not yet. The cloud fairy's gaze lit up and she hurriedly said, Please give me a name, Master. That's called Dayi, how about it? After a moment of contemplation, the leader of the Tongtian sect spoke up, The Great Way is 50, and the heavenly extension is 40.9. Escape one of them. This name is quite consistent with him. Thank you very much for giving me your name, Master. The cloud fairy's face was filled with joy as she gently caressed her bulging abdomen, unable to conceal her excitement. Child, did you hear that? Your master personally gave you a name, and from now on, you will be called Dayi. How many saints can give names to the world? Dayi. Monday.On muttered to himself, Isn't that my name reversed? At this point, the leader of the Tongtian sect suddenly furrowed his brows and glanced up, saying calmly, Your senior uncle is visiting. If you have nothing to do, just leave. Chapter 5. Supreme Constitution, Chaos Spirit Treasure. Seeking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wait until the three heavenly fairy leaves the Bio Palace. The leader of the Tongtian sect said calmly, Senior brother, why haven't you appeared after watching for so long? Not long after, a figure appeared out of thin air in the main hall, an old man with white hair and beard. He smiled and said, I just arrived, just a while ago. Oh. The leader of the Tongtian sect did not point it out and chuckled lightly, saying, Senior brother Tai is really a rare guest. We haven't seen each other for 1,000 years, haven't we? I suddenly visited you today, and I don't know why. Without time in the wilderness, it can easily be 1,000 or 10,000 years. Especially for saints, time is just a literal concept. Junior brother, that's not right. The elderly person with white beard and hair is naturally the leader of the three cleans, the leader of the human education sect. The supreme old lord, also known as the moral heavenly sovereign. He stroked his long beard and said with a smile, "Can't we come and chat with you if we have nothing to do?" "Naturally." The leader of the Tongtian sect smiled and said, "However, I have a great career in teaching in many trivial matters, which is far less leisurely than my senior brother. I'm afraid I won't be able to chat with him for a long time." "It's okay, just chat for a while." The Grand Preceptor, Lao Junquan, should have misunderstood the meaning of expelling guests in his words and intentionally or unintentionally said, "By the way, just now I saw that Yunxiao seemed to be pregnant. This should be the first of the three religion's second-generation disciples to have offspring, right? Congratulations. Is that right?" The leader of the Tongtian sect pretended to be foolish and said, "Why didn't I see it? It's still my senior brother who has sharp eyes like a torch. That's a pity. I thought my junior brother already knew, and I wanted to ask who the father of the child was." The old man looked regretful. "Who knows?" The leader of the Tongtian sect wore a smile on his face and remained silent without revealing any information. Upon seeing this, Tai Shang Lao Jun no longer delved into it and instead talked about the escalating conflict between the two Lich and Demon tribes recently. But it is said that the three heavenly fairy has left the Bio Palace and returned to the three Immortals Island, all of whom are still in a state of considerable excitement. Especially in the clouds. She was originally preparing to pay respects to her master while holding on to the reproached one. Unexpectedly, the master not only did not blame her, but also lent her the sage's futon and personally named the child. Moreover, if the child in the womb is truly what the master calls, the one who has escaped, then in the future, as a Jew, she may be even more prestigious than her. "Sister, I must share this good news with my brother," Bixiao excitedly said. "Well, if brother finds out, he must be very happy," Yunxiao nodded on the side. Their elder brother naturally refers to their sworn brother Zhao Gongming. Not siblings, better than siblings. Moreover, Zhao Gongming is extremely loyal and has strong magical power. He took good care of them even before they became disciples of the Tongtian sect. It is a pure and sincere sibling relationship. The Cloud Fairy smiled and said, "You go inform my brother about this matter. I will first go and put the sage's cattail into my body to nurture the fetus." "Say it." She took a light step and disappeared, appearing in the cloud palace that belonged to her. "Follow the instructions of Master Tongtian." The Cloud Fairy extended a green onion white jade finger and quickly condensed a drop of blood essence, which fell on the sage's cushion. The next moment, the Cloud Fairy felt an inexplicable connection between herself and the sage Putuan. Although the futon does not belong to her, it can be easily folded and released. Mind twitching slightly. The sage futon transformed into a soft glow, seamlessly blending into her belly. At this moment, looking inside herself, the Cloud Fairy clearly saw that the fetus, which was originally in a curled-up state, had stretched its body and sat cross-legged on the sage's cushion. At the same time, a purple breath enveloped the fetus, spreading endlessly. From time to time, the purple aura will emit an extremely faint strand, swimming along the veins of the Cloud Fairy, strengthening the body. "Is this the opportunity that Master said?" A glimmer of brilliance flashed in the beautiful eyes of the Cloud Fairy. That purple aura is undoubtedly the only 6 Hongmeng purple auras in the entire wilderness. Even if it cannot be possessed, simply nourishing the body is something that countless beings dream of, willing to pay a great price. "I did get your light on me." The Cloud Fairy looked softly at the fetus sitting cross-legged on the sage's cushion, her stunning face filled with a radiance of love. "I don't know how long it has been." Unconsciously, her consciousness gradually calmed down, and a hazy cloud enveloped her, entering a rare state of enlightenment. "Is this how the sage's futon looks?" Monday.On, now it should be called Dayi. He sat cross-legged on the cattail, feeling the purple aura enveloping his entire body, constantly warming his small body, which was not the size of a palm. Who can compare to this starting point? Among all the heavens and realms, perhaps they can all be called the most luxurious travelers. Before he was born, he used the sage's cattail to nourish his body, and his mother was still one of the best among the great Luo golden immortals. Is this the legendary birth at the end? Speaking of which, I haven't seen what the system's ultimate reward is yet. Dayi eagerly opens the system backpack. Ding! Do you want to open the supreme reward chest? Yes. With Dao Yi's confirmation, the golden treasure chest in the backpack suddenly burst into a dazzling brilliance. Congratulations, you have obtained the supreme constitution. Hongmeng Dao body, accompanied by chaos spirit treasure. Mother Qi cauldron of all things, creation technique. Hongmeng Dao Jing. Chapter 6. Mass production of Hongmeng purple qi. Seeking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hongmeng Daodi. Chaos Spirit Treasure Mother Qi Cauldron of all things. The Hongmeng Dao Jing of the creation technique. Dao Yi revealed an uncontrollable surprise. As expected. The supreme reward is indeed much better than ordinary rewards. Even the extremely rare chaotic body is not inferior to the Hongmeng Dao body. What is Hongmeng? When chaos is not yet open. According to the order, it should be Hongmeng Chaos Honghuang. Honghuang is a small part after the fragmentation of chaos, while chaos is a small part after the fragmentation of Hongmeng. Hongmeng purple qi is very precious, isn't it? Hongjun Daozu once preached at the Yunxiao palace and distributed 6 sage cattails, which were transformed by the purple energy of Hongmeng. A ray of hazy purple qi represents a holy throne in the wilderness. Suppressing his extremely excited mood, Dao Yi's mind twitched slightly, and an introduction to the 3 rewards came to mind. Hongmeng Dao Ti. The supreme physique, even in the Hongmeng world, is also top-notch and rare in the world, with unlimited achievements. Mother Qi Cauldron of all things. Chaos Spirit Treasure, with both attack and defense capabilities, can also be used to melt magic treasures. Hongmeng Dao Jing. The perfect combination of the creation technique and the Hongmeng Dao body. The Hongmeng world is born independently, not created by living beings. The Hongmeng Dao body cultivates this technique to a great extent, which can condense the Hongmeng purple qi. Sleeping slot. Dao Yi almost cursed profusely. He thought he had overestimated the supreme reward enough, but he underestimated it too much. Condensed Hongmeng purple qi. What is this concept? This means that it is possible to mass-produce the Hunyuan sage. Of course, not every cultivator has the qualification to become a saint, and becoming a saint does not only require the aura of the Hongmeng purple qi. But this is an opportunity. In the current wilderness, only 6 saints can be born. Why? It is because there are only 6 Hongmeng purple qi, and no matter how hard other creatures practice, they will never be able to break free from this shackle. For example, Donghuang Tai, Mingyi Ancestor, Demon Master Kunpeng, Zenyuanzi, Duo Bao Taoist, and so on. This is a typical example. They are all quasi-saints, infinitely close to saints, with strong combat power. However, in the eyes of the Hunyuan sage, even the strongest quasi-saint is just an ant that can be easily crushed. With the Hongmeng Taoist body in the Hongmeng Taoist scriptures, it is almost certain that I will become a saint over time, Dao Yi muttered to himself. Take a gentle breath. Dao Yi calmed down his mind and fully focused on comprehending the Hongmeng Dao Jing. The sage's pussy continuously emitted a misty purple aura, swirling around his body. The chaotic spiritual treasure suspended above his head, spinning leisurely, and the chaotic mother aura fell down one by one. At the same time, the cloud fairy slowly opened her eyes and flashed a hint of surprise, whispering. Undoubtedly, I am a sage's futon. Although only a faint purple aura nourishes my physical body, it has also put me into a state of enlightenment, surpassing 1,000 years of cultivation. This child is indeed my lucky star. While speaking, the cloud fairy looked inside at herself, her gaze fixed on the fetus inside her abdomen, and suddenly froze. Is this a companion spiritual treasure? Her eyes trembled as she stared intently at the swaying tripod with 3 legs and 2 ears above the fetal head, breathing rapidly. Such a strong chaotic aura, is it? Chaos spirit treasure. Beyond the heavens, within the chaos. A vast ancient palace rises and falls, surrounded by one broken star after another revolving around it. The infinite chaotic energy is like Wang Yang, shaking the void. I don't know how many years exist in this world. In the ancient palace, an elderly figure sat cross-legged, like a carved stone. Suddenly, the carved stone came to life, and he slowly opened his eyes. In an instant, it seemed as if all things had returned to silence, and a terrifying scene of the opening of heaven and earth emerged. One world after another, big and small, was shattered. For a long time, his eyes regained calmness, but remained incredibly deep, like a chaotic sea. Strange. The elderly Taoist pondered for a moment before muttering to himself. Inexplicably restless, the heavenly Tao suddenly issued a warning, but did not find the reason for the warning. The Lich Demon Cataclysm is approaching, and the protagonist of heaven and earth is about to change. Is there an unpredictable change? This person is naturally the ancestor of Hongjun Dao, who has already embraced the heavenly way. Lying high in the 9th heaven, with a cold eye on the common people. Not to mention the vast majority of people in the wilderness, even the 6 great sages are just bigger ants in his eyes. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a wild laugh echoed deep in the ancient palace. The road has changed, the road has changed. I finally made it to this day. Hongjun, I want to see how long you can still be carefree. Ha ha ha. Noisy. The Taoist Hongjun's face remained expressionless. He casually waved the dust in his hand, causing the chaotic sea to roll and raging waves to crash into the depths of the ancient palace, instantly suppressing the sound. But there were still faint laughter echoing endlessly. For a while, Hongjun Dao Talent whispered to himself. Pangu and Sanqing are all my disciples, and they are all saints of the heavenly way. There won't be any problems. So, is the accident caused by the 12 ancestors' witches? Dayi is also restless. It seems that the witch hunt is about to be advanced. Since the demon court is not obedient, then change to an obedient heavenly court. Chapter 7. Becoming immortal in the belly, seeking flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time flies like a shuttle. In the blink of an eye, a year has passed. The cloud fairy takes care of her fetus with peace of mind, does nothing every day, sits quietly and cultivates, bringing in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to replenish her own energy. Over the past year, there are still not many creatures who know she is pregnant. Apart from Master Tongtian, only 2 younger sisters and Zhao Gongming know about it. The growth rate of the fetus inside the abdomen is also shocking. Although she hasn't grown much, the cloud fairy can clearly feel that the fetus's cultivation is gradually improving. Normally speaking, as the great Luo Golden Immortal, the cloud fairy, even if she is a normal birth child, her child is at least a golden immortal. But that was after birth. Looking at the vast expanse, any living creature that gives birth to offspring will inevitably absorb the energy of the mother body and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth after birth, in order to become an immortal. But those who have already become immortals in their stomachs are unheard of. That's right. At this point, Dayi has become an immortal. He has nothing else to do in his stomach, he only cultivates every day. Having a Hongmeng Taoist body, practicing the Hongmeng Taoist scriptures. In addition, with the support of the sage Pu Tuan, Dayi, who had not yet been born, became the first person in the history of the times to become an immortal in the womb. At this moment, Dayi sat cross-legged on the sage's altar, with a purple aura emanating from his body. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, as if there was a galaxy hidden within it, like the depths of chaos, mysterious and invisible, incredibly profound. Bang! A huge beam of light suddenly descended from the sky, enveloping the entire cloud fairy. The rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth, centered around her, suddenly transformed into a huge vortex, surging like a raging tide, pouring into her body. Subsequently, it entered the Tao body along the meridians. The cloud fairy, who was closing her eyes and meditating, was taken aback. She opened her eyes and looked at the almost solid spiritual power beside her, murmuring, "Did you break through again? Did the trail break through again?" On Sanxian Island, Bixiao was chatting with Yunxiao when suddenly she turned her head to look in the direction of Yunxiao Palace. "Isn't this too fast?" Bixiao widened her beautiful eyes, full of disbelief. "By calculation, he should be a celestial being now, right?" Yunxiao Fairy's corner of the eye twitched slightly. "I remember a month ago, he should still be an earthly immortal. What a perverted little monster did sister conceive. Before being born, one has become a celestial being. What kind of realm would it be if one were born? A few days ago. For this matter, the fairy Bixiao even went to inquire with her master. Even the leader of the Tongtian sect couldn't figure it out and found it unbelievable, because the effect of the Saint Putuan should only be to nourish the fetus, without any effect on improving cultivation. This is much faster than the speed of our cultivation back then." The Azure Sky Fairy licked her tongue. All three of their sisters are born creatures. They are immortals just after the birth of Lingji. But being able to reach the current level of the Great Luo Golden Immortal also relies on years of cultivation, and each realm requires at least 1,000 years of time. Especially breaking through the Great Luo Golden Immortal, it's been an unknown amount of time. Anyway, he is our nephew. Yunxiao Fairy's beautiful eyes flickered as she smiled and said, "No matter how abnormal the little one is, it won't do us any harm." "Not bad." The Blue Sky Fairy blinked her big eyes, and a faint hint of evil energy flowed. "Even if Xiao Dao Yi is really a monster, he is still our nephew. Who dares to say that he is not good, and I will personally kill him. Especially those hypocrites who preach. Nowadays, the relationship between Sanqing is still good, and the teachings of Zhanjiao and Jijiao have not completely overturned. But in the speech and behavior of the disciples of the Chan sect, they all look down upon the disciples of the Jia sect, which perfectly inherits the belief of the primordial heavenly sovereign that the Jia sect is a generation dressed in hair and horns. Therefore, the relationship between the two religions appears to be good on the surface. There is often friction in the dark. As for human education now, Tai Shang Lao Jun doesn't have a single disciple yet. His only biological disciple, the renowned human trader Xuandu Grand Master, has not yet been born. Finally stepping into the realm of immortality. Dao Yi opened his eyes and two purple rosy clouds reflected through the abdomen of the clouds to the outside world. At first glance, it looks like a magnificent purple aura. The fetus in the realm of immortality has probably been the only one since the creation of heaven and earth, said Dao with a faint smile on his lips. It has to be said. The Hongmeng Dao Jing is truly a perfect creation for the Hongmeng Dao body. When Dao Yi was practicing this technique, there were no constraints at all, and his momentum was unstoppable and incredibly smooth. In addition, with the assistance of the sage Putuan, the cultivation speed is surprisingly fast. I just don't know when I'll be born. Dao Yi sat cross-legged on top of the Putuan, with billions of chaotic mother qi hanging from the cauldron of all things above his head, shining in harmony with the blooming purple qi emanating from the Putuan. Today, although he is still a fetus, he looks no different from the child after birth. Mother doesn't know either. Suddenly, a soft and loving voice echoed in my ear, I estimate that I will be born at the right time. Don't be impatient. Dao was momentarily stunned. He froze for a moment, then instinctively lifted his head and said in shock, Mother, can you hear me? Chapter 8. The savior of the clouds. Seeking fresh flowers. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The first time I heard it, the stunning face of the cloud fairy was filled with a loving expression. She gently stroked her already bulging abdomen and whispered, "It should be because you entered the realm of immortality." "Well, it's okay." Dayi suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Listening to the childlike voice emanating from her abdomen, Yunxiao's beautiful eyes blinked and said, "What's okay?" "It's okay." Of course, Dayi wouldn't say it. He has occasionally muttered to himself in the past year, and the content is definitely a heavenly book that Yunxiao cannot understand. It seems that we need to be cautious in our words in the future. Dayi silently warned himself in his heart. However, fortunately, he showed some supernatural qualities early on, so there's no need to pretend to be a child. Moreover, this is a wilderness. A fetus that can be born with knowledge is just too normal. By the way, mother. Dayi suddenly thought of something and pouted, "Take me out for a walk when you have time. I'm almost bored staying at home every day." "Okay, okay." The cloud fairy smiled and said, "Where do you want to go?" She was feeling very happy at the moment, and hearing the child's voice for the first time today gave her an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. Just like a long-planted spiritual field, suddenly sprouting tender buds. Nowadays, all her thoughts are focused on the fetus in her womb, and even if she sacrifices everything, including her life, she will not hesitate. Let me think about it. Dayi's thoughts were spinning rapidly. He wants to go out for a stroll, and being bored here is just one of the reasons. The most important thing is, Dayi wants to change the fate of the future 3 heavenly fairy, and it would be even better if it could be changed along with the fate of Jiejiao. At least we need to prevent our mother from dying tragically. A hint of coldness flashed in Dao's eyes. Although he has memories from his past life, in this life, he is indeed the true belly of the cloud fairy. He can also clearly feel the love of the clouds for himself. By the way, Dayi suddenly spoke in a childish voice, "Mother, is there a great conflict between the witch and demon tribes now?" Over the past year. He also occasionally heard of Bixiao, Zhunti and others coming to talk to Yunxiao about the affairs of the lich and demon tribes. Obviously, the battle of the witches has not yet begun. I don't know how many years are left until the battle of the gods. Very large. When it comes to the 2 races of witches and demons, the cloud fairy frowned lightly. Dayi was not surprised to know about the lich demon. After all, she could hear outside voices a year ago. I don't know why, although there was a deep conflict between the 2 races of witches and demons, it was just a small fight. But in the past year, there have been several incidents that have led to increasingly intense conflicts between the 2 sides, and even several major battles at the level of the Luo Jin Xian. The voice of the clouds was gentle with a hint of depth, speaking in a gentle manner. In a sense, there is no clear boundary between immortals and demons in the wilderness. In layman's terms, the vast majority of creatures in the wilderness are demons because they are all shaped by something. For example, Taoist Duobao. His true form is said to be the first treasure-hunting mouse in the world, and its authenticity is unknown. Like the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit, whose essence is a large turtle, and the Lord of the Demon Court, Emperor Jun, and the Eastern Emperor Dayi, were born from the Sun Star, which was transformed by the eyes of Pangu after the fall of the 3-legged golden crow. Simply put, whether it's a fairy or a demon depends on your stance. The leader of the Tongtian sect once established a rule that no disciple who intercepts teaching can enter the demon court to hold a position. This is also to avoid the suspicion of Eastern Emperor Dayi and Demon Emperor Jun, who may be worried that the sage is trying to seize the power of the demon court. So, the battle of the witches is about to begin. Dao frowned slightly, which was much faster than he expected. In his view, the witch race is actually an object that can be won over. The 12 ancestral witches are all transformed from the essence and blood of Pangu after his fall. Each ancestral witch has quasi-holy power and controls a law. The most important thing is that they can form the 12 heavenly divine Sha formation. Ning Pangu true body. Dayi always felt that Pangu's true body should not be so weak, but it was Pangu who almost proved the existence of Dao. Perhaps something was missing, which prevented the 12 ancestors which from fully unleashing the true strength of Pangu. Dao pondered in his heart. As for the demon race, he directly excluded it. Being able to compete with the witch clan is entirely due to the formation of the Zhou Tian Star Do formation composed of Hichu Luo Shu and countless demon gods, as well as the current strongest among the saints, Emperor Dayi. And the reason why Emperor Dayi is so strong is not only because of himself, but also because of the innate treasure chaos clock. Mother, how is your relationship with the 12 ancestors which? Dayi spoke in a childish voice and asked. It's okay, isn't it? The cloud fairy pondered for a moment and said, my mother and the ancestor of rain, Wu Xianming, have a very good relationship. When we were young, we encountered danger and were even rescued by your 2 aunts. Later, we became friends. Is there such an interesting old story? That's it. Xianming is still the life-saving benefactor of Sanshao Fairy. The rain ancestor Wu Xianming is undoubtedly the strongest among the 12 ancestor witches, and one of the only 2 women. Even the eldest Emperor Jiang would listen to her opinion. With a sudden thought, Dayi pondered his words and said in a crisp voice, Mother, do you want to repay the kindness that Xianming saved you back then? Chapter 9. Praising the father and chasing the son, Dayi draws his bow, seeking fresh. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How can we repay the kindness of saving lives? The cloud fairy gently caressed her abdomen and said with a smile, Xianming saved my mother and your 2 aunts back then. How can I repay this kindness? If it weren't for her, my mother would have been buried in the belly of a fierce beast. That's not necessarily true. Dayi smiled and said, I'll repay her for saving her life. Give her life back. The cloud fairy's heart twitched slightly. She lowered her gaze as she looked at her bulging belly, and suddenly remembered the words she had heard a year ago when she paid her respects to the master Tongtian sect. If the child is really a fugitive, then he may not be shooting aimlessly. How to repay it? The cloud fairy asked after him. I'll talk to her first. Dayi sat on the futon, his big eyes purring as he said, the secrets of heaven must not be revealed. Okay. The cloud fairy immediately nodded. In any case, Xianming once saved their 3 sisters' lives. This matter always lingers in her heart. If Xianming really has a killing calamity at hand, and not to mention a good relationship, even if the relationship is ordinary, helping her through a calamity can still be considered as repaying a cause and effect. It is also of great benefit to future cultivation. So, whether it's for oneself or for her, it's a good thing. At this moment, the cloud fairy immediately set off, walked out of the cloud palace, and instantly transformed into a stream of light that disappeared into the sky. Almost at the same time, 2 beautiful shadows appeared over Sanxian Island. Strange, where are you going in such a hurry, sister? Yunxiao fairy frowned. Really? The fairy Bixiao furrowed her brows and said, my belly is so big, and I'm still so restless. I don't even know how to call us out when I go out. What if I encounter danger? On the side, Yunxiao fairy couldn't help but cry and laugh. Sister's cultivation is high, and she has the protection of her master. I believe no one who doesn't have eyes dares to provoke her. Well, that's not safe either. The fairy Bixiao pouted and snorted in dissatisfaction. She's fine, what if the child has something to do? No, I have to go find my master and let him take good care of my sister. It's best to give her a death order and not go out. After speaking, she summoned the flower feather bird to ride and galloped towards the direction of Bio Palace. Yunxiao fairy shook her head helplessly. She stared in a certain direction, pondered for a moment, and a hint of worry appeared on her eyebrows. The location where sister just went seems to be the location of the witch clan, so she should have gone to search for the Xianming. Now that the conflict between the witch and demon clans is becoming increasingly fierce, sister, don't get involved. Today, their 3 sisters are all outstanding among the golden immortals of the Luo. But whether it's for the 12 ancestors witch, or for the Eastern Emperor Dayi or the demon Emperor Jun, they are all too weak. Those are all quasi-holy level powerhouses. Even if you want to help Xianming, you are still powerless. During this period, the witch and demon tribes were the 2 major hegemons of the wilderness. Among the Wu ethnic group, there are not only the 12 ancestral witches, but other great witches such as Jiufeng, Dayi, Quafu, Xingtian, etc. are also top-level powerhouses. And the demon race goes without saying. Except for the witch clan and the creatures who joined the truthful sect, they can basically be called the demon clan. The demon emperor Jun himself was designated by Hongjun as the head of the demon court. The famous Zhou star Do formation requires a total of 365 demon gods from the realm of the great Luo golden immortal, whose power is unimaginable. The vast and boundless wilderness. It took more than a month for the cultivation of the cloud fairy Daoyuo Jingxian to arrive at the location of the Wu tribe. There are many strange black spots on the ground, and from time to time, there are great witches roaring in the sky and earth. Bang! Not far away, a rumbling sound came. A young adult witch, not very big, but dragging a dead behemoth with one hand, like an ancient demon mountain. Every step falls, the earth trembles and makes a sound. Undoubtedly, it is the witch race transformed by Pangu's essence and blood. Dayi secretly licked his tongue. Pangu uses his strength to prove the Tao, breaking through 10,000 laws with one force. And most of the witches have inherited this, not cultivating their spiritual essence, relying entirely on the power of their physical bodies, being arrogant and ferocious. It's here. The cloud fairy whispered softly. Along the way, I have also encountered some difficulties. When she stepped into the territory of the Lich tribe, she was attacked by some members of the Lich tribe, which shows how tense the Lich 2 tribes were at this time. Fortunately, the cloud fairy has a token from Xianming, otherwise she would have had to fight all the way. Falling from the air to the ground. Dayi only realized that the black dots he had just seen from above were actually stone pillars, each one standing hundreds of feet high. Everywhere exudes a wild and boundless atmosphere. Wu clan's stronghold, stop. 2 burly figures blocked the way. They were covered in scars left by various ferocious beasts, extremely savage, with an undisguised ferocity in their eyes. Zhejiao Yunxiao, come to visit Xianming ancestral witch. Yunxiao's face remained calm as he skillfully pulled out a stone token. It turns out to be the cloud fairy of Zhejiao. After obtaining the token for confirmation, the attitude of the 2 gatekeepers suddenly changed. One of them turned around and led the way, bringing the cloud fairy to a large hall. He smiled and said, Xianming ancestor is currently discussing with several other ancestors. The fairy will wait for a moment. Okay. The cloud fairy nodded. She gently caressed her lower abdomen, with a faint hint of worry between her eyebrows. As far as she knows, if the 12 ancestral witches gather together, it means that something big is about to happen. After a moment, a furious roar suddenly exploded outside, shaking the sky. The demon tribe bullies people too much. Emperor Jun's 10 sons roamed across the vast land, using the true fire of the sun to burn and kill millions of our Wu tribe members. Qua Fu was just trying to argue with them, but they were besieged and died. If I don't avenge this, I will be a great witch in vain. Dayi. Chapter 10. The Heart of Pangu, Seeking Flowers and Collecting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qua Fu is dead. The Cloud Fairy's face showed a startled expression and suddenly stood up. Hua Fu is one of the great witches in the witch clan, with higher strength than her. Yunxiao once met him, a tall man who was 5 meters tall. He had a relatively simple and straightforward personality. The popularity among the witches is quite good. Unexpectedly, he was killed by Emperor Jun's 10 sons. Lie down, praise your father for dying. Dayi's reaction was even more exaggerated than that of the Cloud Fairy. Of course, he didn't say this sentence, but shouted in his heart. Develop according to the timeline of the past, and then connect with the extremely angry roar outside. Without a doubt. After Hua Fu's pursuit of the sun, Dayi's shooting of the sun is about to take place. In this way, the final battle of the witches may not be far away. This speed caught me off guard a bit. Dao's mouth twitched slightly. The fall of De Wu Kuafu is the prelude to the second large-scale battle of robbing witches and demons. Bang! At this moment, one terrifying aura after another rose up in the midst of the witch tribe, with a terrifying arc sweeping across the sky. Thunder shook the sky like a crack in the sky. Strange black raindrops poured down. Zuwu was angry. The Cloud Fairy took a light breath. The thunder that swept across the sky was the raging anger of the ancestors of thunder, Wu Qiangliang, and electricity, Wu Shizi, triggering changes in the celestial phenomena. As for the falling black rain, it is undoubtedly caused by the mysterious world. The war is really about to begin. The Cloud Fairy slowly walked out of the room, looking at the gloomy sky and murmuring softly. The next moment, a massive and terrifying figure slowly rose from the witch tribe, covering the vast expanse of the sky. That figure, tiger-headed and human, with 4 hooves, each holding a winding snake in its hand, like a terrifying demon god emerging from chaos. Zuwu Faxiang. Next up. In the cold, a voice with raging anger tore through the sky, rolling and echoing in the ears of every witch. The demon tribe bullied me too much. Starting from now on, I will officially go to war with the demon race under the name of Zuwu Qiangliang. The words fall into place. The beginning of the Lich War has set the tone at this moment. War. 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 Countless creatures of the witch race howled angrily in the sky. Dayi, did you already anticipate this? Whispered the Cloud Fairy. No. Dao pouted and said, although I know there will be a battle between the witches sooner or later, I didn't expect it to be so fast. It's not very reasonable. It's really too abrupt. The Cloud Fairy nodded with a bitter smile. It can be imagined. This battle of witchcraft and demons is bound to be a disaster for all living beings. Even if it is not as chaotic as the chaos caused by the 3 innate tribes of dragons, phoenixes, and Qilin back then, it is not worth giving in too much. Shaking his head, he turned around and returned to the room. A moment later, a gloomy figure walked over. After seeing the clouds, the visitor's face softened slightly, and he forced out a smile, saying, Miss Yunxiao, have you been okay lately? Everything goes as usual. The Cloud Fairy looked worried and said, Sister Xianming, are you ready to go to war with the demon court completely? Not bad. Xianming was dressed in black, outlining a perfect figure with a black droplet mark on his forehead. A hint of coldness flashed in her eyes, and her face was filled with a sinister expression. Hua Fu cannot die in vain. Upon hearing this, the Cloud Fairy remained silent. She was also aware that besides the 12 ancestors of the witch clan, the strongest group of warriors were the great witches, and they themselves were not many. Die one less. If he died in battle, it would be fine, but Hua Fu's death was clearly a bit unfair. Stop talking about this. Xianming shook her head and her gaze fell on the belly of the Cloud Fairy. With great interest, she said, Sister, when did you get married? Why didn't you inform me? Sister Xianming misunderstood. The Cloud Fairy smiled helplessly and recounted the story about the fetus. Xianming was amazed to hear it. Dayi, say hello to your Xianming aunt. The cloud fairy gently stroked her lower abdomen and said in a warm voice. Hello, Aunt Xianming. Dao Yi's tender voice was transmitted. How well behaved. The childish voice dispelled a lot of the dark clouds on Xuanming's face. She smiled and said, after you are born, my aunt will give you a big gift. Thank you, Aunt Xianming. Dao Yi performed very well behaved and clever. Dao Yi, do you have anything to tell Aunt Xianming? Yunxiao fairy reminded gently. Oh. Xianming said enthusiastically, little Dao, what do you want to say to your aunt? Ding. Trigger task. Option 1. Persuade Xianming and the demon clan to persevere and receive a reward. Pangu's heart. Option 2. Persuade Xianming to reconcile with the demon tribe and receive rewards. 10 drops of Zuwu's essence and blood, and 10 drops of Jinwu's essence and blood. Option 3. Persuade Xianming to bow down and submit to the demon tribe, and you will receive a reward of 9 revolutions of golden elixir, 1 pot.